is a Bramble Jam podcast.
Welcome to Girls Gone Hallmark, a Hallmark review podcast. I'm Megan, and I'm a longtime Hallmark fan.
I'm Wendy. I'm a former Hallmark hater.
We are back with our 9th installment of the Way Home listener mailbag in advance of tomorrow's season finale. And y'all buckle up because this episode is a doozy. You brought it like you have never brought it before. Quick reminder, if you want to send in thoughts, we will be doing one final listener mailbag for the Way Home next week after the finale. Email us girlsgonehallmark@gmail.com. Will the listener mailbags continue in another form after that? I believe the answer is yes.
I'd love to.
Yeah, so what we want from you is, as listeners, The Way Home may be ending, but our coverage of Hallmark movies is not. So feel free to email us your thoughts on movies we're reviewing. Maybe your thoughts on movies we're not.
Yeah.
Thoughts on our reviews. Feel free to disagree with us. Chime in.
Thoughts on Hallmark in general.
Yeah. Let's just start the conversation. Keep it coming. girlsgonehallmark@gmail.com. We are going to start with reviewing some YouTube comments.
Our first comment is from XOAbby19. And they say, there was a promo photo released of adult Colton and teen Kat in the steps of the farmhouse in 1999. And Colton seems to be holding a metal gold piece of something. I think that whatever this piece is what Elliot finds in the bottom of the clock in episode 9. And this is the key to future time travel, given that it has been mentioned a lot more recently. And this could be from something that Colton and Jacob were tinkering with, but Jacob doesn't remember.
I am pulling up the promo photos as available for
episode 10.
It must be for episode 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
Steps of the farmhouse. Steps of the Ooh.
While you're pulling that up, I wonder where XOAbby19 saw this promo photo, because as you and I know, we have access to the Hallmark press site.
Yeah, but I think Hallmark often releases these promo photos on their Instagram.
I agree. But sometimes I see on Reddit and in other big The Way Home groups, photos shared that I know are not out.
That shouldn't be shared yet?
Yeah, and I am wondering who's doing that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't spoil it for the people. Anyway, because obviously
I wonder if they started to lock down some of their press access as a result of that.
Maybe.
Yeah, that photo is not on the Hallmark Channel Instagram.
Oh, interesting.
The photo, I just zoomed in. Colton is holding, it looks like a keychain. In fact, it is a keychain. It's hard to tell what's on it. You could just see the keychain and then some sort of maybe metal, or it looks like metal. It honestly could just be keys. It doesn't look exactly like that item that Elliot found in the clock.
That gold, that long piece of metal.
Yeah, the tool that we could not identify. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that that's not going to play in somehow to the clock repair in the future.
I'm really hoping that there's going to be some future time travel.
Me too.
And I'm really hoping that this whole clock stuff isn't just some distraction.
Yeah, but there's a lot of comments on actually the clock.
Okay.
Nate and Heather say, I love how Dell pulled up at the vineyard and was like, Jacob, put the fire down and get your butt in the truck. And he did it.
Yeah, she finally used her mom voice with him.
Yeah.
No.
It is kind of funny that he just obeys and drives off.
Yeah, it is. It is funny. I mean, God, dude, you're making such a terrible decision. Rayleigh's Hero writes on YouTube, I can't take credit for this, but heard on another podcast that the person that could be sending the letters is the man that sold the Herald back in season 2.
Byron.
He was going to Morocco let me just pause there. Morocco. I do remember going to an Evie mentioning Morocco this season too. A lot of Morocco talk.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's purposeful.
Don't know.
Perhaps he and Evelyn got close, and shared stories with him. Remember, she willed all the files to Catherine and had her portrait hanging in Lingermore. Who else would have access to an old typewriter?
I mean, let's keep in mind that Evelyn was planning to go to Morocco in 1974 and Byron was going there in 2023. So whether or not Evelyn would still be there.
Was Evelyn dead in 2023? I don't remember when Evelyn died.
Pretty darn close. I think she was in her Lingermore recluse phase.
Yeah.
User Sylvester Glenn says, regarding the clock, on the Reddit The Way Home page, someone found the clock and posted pictures. I think it's German from the mid-1800s and has this weird wire configuration at the top. Some people on Reddit were positing that the girl at Coils who talks to Alice might be Elliot's mom since she's reading T.S. Eliot.
After we recorded last week's podcast, I remember I was thinking, because I was like, who's this random chick?
Yeah.
Nothing's random on this show.
course.
So I would be interested to see if that plays out this season or next. User Figracula1 left a comment on YouTube. The parts with the clock are for a flying pendulum that goes on the top of the clock. Maybe when the clock is fixed, time travel will be fixed and people can travel forward or backwards in time. Or they can go and correct things that happened in the past, like saving Colton and Rick. Can I just say 2 comments back to back about clocks? I'm kind of surprised so many clock experts weighing in.
Yeah, there's a lot of clock comments. I'm impressed with the clock knowledge in the Way Home community.
That's what I'm going to title this episode. Clock knowledge.
So look, I love Colton. I love adult Colton. I love Jefferson Brown. I love Colton so much. And I don't think that saving Colton should be our goal.
Oh, why?
Because I think there are tales from the past that teach us that trying to undo deaths like that, there's some other ripple effect. Unfortunately, bad things happen. And I think the better thing here is understanding why it happened, understanding for Dell, maybe understanding why Colton may or may not have shared things with her, getting closure,
Yeah, not to reverse things, but to understand them.
to be better able to live with the events of what
Yeah, that's
happened.
really good.
I think should be the goal here. As much as I love Colton, like we didn't really get to know Rick. It's tragic that this teenager died, but I think undoing deaths, in my personal opinion, as much as I could understand that being the motivation of their family members and their close friends, I don't think that should be our ultimate goal here.
I hear you.
And especially because the writers have done such a good job of continuing to include Jefferson Brown. We get him on camera so much.
I just love it so much. I love this actor so much. Please be in more Hallmark movies.
Michelle Casita 5352 said, it looked like Elliot was about to say mom when he saw her, which I said in our episode. And more than one person messaged to say the same thing. Shan says, also on YouTube, I'm thinking maybe somehow Susanna is going to end up being Elliot's mom. I know it sounds crazy, but I really think he got his 5 minutes with his mom.
What do you think?
Well, in that moment, when he walked up to her, I thought it was going to be more significant. As we discussed in the episode, I'm willing to buy that it was simply that this was a family member that he could be proud of, that he was meeting, and that was significant enough for him.
Piggybacking on Elliot's mom, Nate and Heather write, the girl that quoted T.S. Eliot to Alice seemed like a weird add to the scene. I agree. I think that could be Alice's daughter. She was definitely trying to encourage Alice to follow her dreams, and she seemed like she could be out of time. I still don't think that KC is Alice's kid.
Yeah, that was a definite moment for me when that girl turns around. As mentioned in that previous comment, she is kind of the right age for her and Vic to be around the same age in 1974. So,
yeah, she did kind of seem a little bit maybe younger than teen
Alice and Evelyn when she turns around. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the comment above that suggests that maybe she's Elliot's mom? Rayleigh's hero comments, Kat and Thomas were never meant to be. Kat and Elliot's relationship needed to be tested to make good television. This is why they brought Emma back. It's a typical Hallmark storyline. There's always a conflict in the middle, and then they realize that the person is the one for them. That's all Thomas, a test to their relationship, even though they had amazing on-screen chemistry. So going into the finale, it did really feel to me like they put a button on the Thomas relationship in the last episode. Where are you with that?
I agree with you. I don't think I'm happy about it, but I agree with you. It just seemed like with Kat and Thomas having their like big kind of final conversation, not the return, but Elliot showing up in 18 whatever, and then
Claim his girl.
and then their little like bro nod. Yeah, I think that's the end of it, which kind of bums me out. Like, give me a spinoff with Thomas, maybe.
Yeah.
I would love that. I just love the actor. I love the character. He's a fun watch for me. So that's why, like, give me the spinoff when he goes to New York. I want to see him establish his life there. They won't. Somebody write some fan fiction, please.
Thomas and Jasper. What's the deal there?
Yeah. This username is funny to me. It's probably like just an automated user GS7FP6MI6R. If that's you, raise your hand. I've been thinking about the rules of the pond. I believe the showrunners when they say they are staying true to the rules, but we don't necessarily know all the rules yet. At the beginning, Elliot thought time travel only worked for Alice, but then Kat time traveled, and we learned that Jacob went into the pond, so he thought only a Landry could time travel. But then Elliot realized that a non-Landry can travel to the past, provided they're traveling with a Landry. What if there are similar exceptions that we don't know of yet?
Everyone says the pond won't let you travel forward in time, but what if it's possible for a Landry to do so, providing they're traveling with another Landry from the future? If Casey really is from the future, for example, what if Colton used them to take him forward in time to look for Jacob? I keep thinking there is some forward time travel happening concurrently that we still don't know about. I think there is the sheer volume of things that we don't know about is so huge that I'm not willing to let go of the idea of future time travel. I know there are people in the community that think it's antithetical to the ideas that we have going on here, but I'm not ready to let it go yet.
Here's a thought. What if we just don't know on the way home that every single person is a time traveler? Like, we've made up these like weird rules. I mean, the writers have made up these weird rules, right? We don't know of any of them to be fact. Every single person in Port Haven could be a time traveler.
So, yeah.
So no, it's saying like, could there be time travel happening concurrently? Future, backward, sideways, whatever. Yes, I think so.
I think so too. The only reason I'm going to push back on that about everyone being a time traveler, well, I guess it could happen. Here's what I'm thinking. The writers have said that they are sticking to the rules of the pond as they have been established. And one of the rules of the pond is you can only time travel with a Landry. So I guess the same way this user is suggesting is that as long as someone's traveling with a Landry, anybody could be a time traveler. Elliot's the only one we've seen do like a ride-along time travel.
You're right.
It's an interesting sci-fi twist that we find out that like people are just jumping in and out of that pond all day long. I don't know if it's at the top of my list of believable theories.
My point is like, you know how they say that theory, like you never see your neighbors bring groceries in?
Yeah, that we all live in a simulation.
Yes.
I think about that all the time. I never see my neighbors.
I know
bring
that,
groceries
but I'm
in.
like, what? So maybe the people of Port Haven are living in this like whatever, you know?
Yeah, maybe there's going to be some big reveal at the end, some big pullback, and we're going to go, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nate and Heather ask, what if the clock will allow people to rewind time and they can rewind Colton's death and save him? We know how I feel about that. I mean, I feel like a hater. I think we've established on this show that their participation is less to change the past and more to understand it or to facilitate it. Mm-hmm. The next YouTube comment is from Carol Jen. I apologize. If Thomas had a daughter, I bet he would name her after Catherine, and her name would be KC. That said, I actually think it's just as likely that Thomas and Kat have a baby together in the 1800s. Birth control who? And for whatever reason, they have to send the baby down the river to the Landry house at some point in time. That's really the only place a rogue baby could be raised, so it's got to be somebody we've met already. Yeah. I don't like the idea of the baby being put on the river. Well, it's not a river.
In the pond.
It's a pond. I don't like the idea of the baby in the pond. I feel like the baby is left behind for a reason. I don't know what that reason is. I don't know who's supposed to find, but I don't believe the idea of the baby going through the pond as discussed. Feels real dangerous to just jump into a pond with a baby who cannot swim.
Yeah.
And does not know to hold its breath.
Yeah, you're logistically really hung up on that on a show about time travel, huh?
I think some things we have to push back on, and I'm pushing back on tossing a baby into a pond, hoping it time travels. What if the person jumping into the pond with the baby time travels and the baby doesn't?
Yeah, no, I know.
And then the baby
is floating in the water. Yeah.
It's not great.
Yeah, I hear you. Sandy Forest 5593 writes, very disappointed that the writers decided to end the epic romance between Thomas and Catherine. Apparently, they don't care about half of their fan base. Maybe they care about the Elliot Cat fan base. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you.
This really riled some people up.
I know. I mean, I hear you. I enjoy the Thomas and Catherine of it all as well.
I mean, what's funny is another comment from Nola KLG came in and said, I'm so sorry you guys don't like Elliot. I don't think we don't like Elliot.
Yeah,
I don't dislike Elliot. I
married an Elliot, guys. So, come on. I don't dislike Elliot, but comparison between Thomas and Elliot, I find myself more...
It's intentional, though, don't you think?
Yes,
they wanted us to be like, go for the hot guy from the past who's like smoldering, as opposed to the
dependable, smart guy. Yes.
I mean, this user goes on to say, I like Elliot. I don't find smart, curious, well-read people boring, but that's just me.
Same.
I enjoy Elliot, too. They were intentionally leading us down a path to make us doubt Kat's relationship with Elliot. They wanted us to be torn in who we're rooting for.
Mm-hmm. It's purposeful.
And it was well done because Thomas was an excellent distraction, an excellent reason for Kat to discover the things that she needs in a partner.
Exactly.
Let's move on to some Instagram comments.
Melissa writes, I have a theory about the baby that was left by the pond. I don't think I have seen anyone say this, but I think Evelyn adopts that baby. Maybe she never married, and that's why they both have Goodwin as their last name. I haven't watched episode 9 yet, so not sure if there was anything about that in this storyline. Well, yes, in episode 9, we did learn that Evelyn was married at one point and dropped that married name, but we don't know how Lewis Goodwin came to be.
Yeah, I feel like we're to assume that she changed her son's name as well. Mm-hmm. Max tells Alice, she had a bad marriage, she changed her name back. But Max doesn't say, and changed my father's name as well. So we get half of an answer to that question. Michelle mentioned old clocks need to be wound. They didn't have batteries. What he, meaning Elliot, right? What he found was the key. She sent a screenshot of an explanation about clocks needing to be wound. Yeah, that is a good point. That one that I didn't consider. It feels like Elliot, the science teacher, may have understood that the reason the clock doesn't work is because it needs to be wound and it's just not straight up broken. Mm-hmm. But Michelle goes on to say, do we know who the girl that quoted T.S. Eliot to Alice in 1974 at Coils was. And she says, season 3, episode 7, Rita says, it's always the person you least expect. Could that have been Rita? And she knows more than she's letting on.
Oh, hadn't thought about Rita.
Michelle continues saying, dying to know who Evelyn married that was so bad she dropped the name. Maybe, quote, Sam.
He did come to town after Evelyn died.
Michelle says the big tell-all from Colton would make a nice wrap-up of unanswered questions if the show had to end. I really hope we get another season. I haven't heard any official announcement.
When do you want to talk about that? At the end of this episode? Or do you want to talk about it now?
Let's just do it.
Okay. So, yes, Hallmark has not announced if The Way Home is coming back for season 4 yet. This has been a big topic of conversation in our Girls Gone Hallmark Facebook group.
Yes.
I would like you to weigh in here about what you said in our Facebook group.
There's been a lot of discussion, as Wendy said, about The Way Home renewal and why we haven't heard anything. And in our group, a lot of people are discussing the ratings. Here's why I don't think we can make a leap from the ratings to the show being canceled. Ratings are down across cable networks overall. People access Hallmark shows, The Way Home, on Peacock, on Hallmark Plus. They have DVRs. Ratings are not a direct way of measuring how much people are watching. And I would imagine that Hallmark has back-end ratings of Peacock viewing with their partnership with Peacock. And of course, Hallmark Plus viewing, giving them a better picture of who's engaged in this show. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying the show's not going to be canceled. I'm just saying, for me, with all the talk during Countdown to Christmas about how the ratings did not live up to 2023, that's not enough of a reason for me. The other thing is, there's a lot going on. Hallmark initially announced this show was going to be on Hallmark Plus. They had to reverse course after huge backlash from the fans. And that forced them to put the show on Friday nights because they had already, for whatever reason, filled their Sunday time slot and they couldn't.
With the When Calls the Heart.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So When Calls the Heart is on Sundays. They're like, we're going to drop it on Thursdays on Hallmark Plus. People went crazy. And they were like, well, the only room we have is on Fridays. That's a terrible time slot. Fridays is a bad time slot. And so could that have affected the ratings? Yes. Would it be short-sighted for Hallmark to be like, well, we put it in a time slot. It tanked. Bye. Maybe. There's a lot of factors that go into this. I also feel, and I say to Wendy, there's something about this season and the way people talk about it that is giving me the same vibes as I get when people talk about political conspiracy theories. And sometimes people reference articles from sources I've never heard of. I know that girlsconehallmark.com is not a bastion of journalistic integrity. I do not consider us on par with entertainment news sites like Variety and People. But what we report there, we report based on facts and information, and we don't have an agenda other than to provide information and perhaps be entertaining. Mm-hmm. This is a long way to say I'm going to be real sad if the show is canceled.
I said I would riot in the streets of Kansas City. Who's coming with me?
Talk about cancellation dates.
So it says...
You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. Hallmark picked up the drama for its 3rd season just ahead of the finale episode in the 2nd season. And during season 1, it was renewed just 6 episodes into the 1st season.
You and I just recently on an episode talked about some changes in leadership in Hallmark, and we, knowing absolutely nothing, posited that perhaps that's affecting some of the Hallmark scheduling, the changeover. Perhaps as one person was exiting, things weren't maybe in progress as much as they should have been, and they're playing a little bit of a game of catch up. And in order to do that, renewing a show isn't just like Hallmark saying we want it back. It's Hallmark saying, we want it back, and this is what we're going to pay you for it, and this is how we're going to do it. And then everybody needed to get on board and sign their contracts before they can announce.
Yeah.
You get a Friends situation where they're like, we're not coming back unless we get X amount of money. I'm not suggesting that's what's happening here, but there's a lot of things that need to fall into place.
There's a lot of things that could be happening totally behind the scenes that we are completely unaware of.
I'm not naive. I know shows get canceled, and maybe it will. And I know beloved shows get canceled. I also know that podcast listenership has zero direct correlation to who's watching things. However, Are the Way Home episodes have a higher listenership by a noticeable margin than our other episodes.
Or the regular Saturday night movies or mysteries.
Correct. They have a bigger audience. They have a more engaged audience. And there's other reasons for that, right? People need a Way Home recap in a way they don't need a recap of a royal movie. So I understand why someone would be more inclined to listen to a recap of The Way Home. I'm just saying, I'm not ready to write the show off.
Me neither.
I hope it comes back for us.
So do I.
We will be here. I really don't want to wait another year, but I know we're going to have to.
Oh, of course we're going to have to.
So those are our deep thoughts on The Way Home Renewal. Send your thoughts to girlsgonehallmark@gmail.com. Also, this is Monday that we're recording this. This episode comes out on Thursday. Things could change. And so if you're hearing this conversation going, yo, dummies.
Didn't you hear? It got renewed. We are recording a little bit ahead of time.
Yeah, we do not have future time travel at our disposal.
No, we do not. No magic clock on this mantle.
All right, back to thoughts. Why don't you read what Wayne has to say?
Superfan Wayne gives 2 thoughts. 1, if Jacob brought Elliot to 18-something and just ran back to the pond, he had no idea Kat was okay and able to bring Elliot home. These Landrys are so willy-nilly about using the pond and doing whatever they want. Here you go, Elliot. Welcome to the past, I think, because I didn't go verify with you. Now go through the path and you'll either find a Landry farm or dysentery. Good luck. Wayne is not wrong. I'm telling you, I am uncomfortable this entire season with just like, jump into the pond and see where it's going to take you. You're hoping you're going to end up where you want to end up.
And without fail, it takes them to the moment they want to go. They play fast and loose with their time travel abilities.
I don't like it. It makes me worried. Wayne also adds one quick note. Nothing is random. Who was that girl with the T.S. Eliot quote? You're not wrong, Wayne. I'm sure she wasn't some random chick like I thought she was.
Definitely not. The scene, like, they're practically like, hello, pay attention here when she turns around. I mean, like, she's like holding up her book and quoting. I wrote the whole thing down. It's meaningful. I just don't know what the meaning that it is full of is.
Correct.
Also, credit where credit is due. As we discussed the continuation of our Mailbag episodes beyond The Way Home, Wayne is the one who was like, yo, keep it going. They do not have to end. Janice says, want to know what's frustrating the hell out of me with this season's The Way Home? The fact that they build up all these mysteries to either go unanswered or the answer being so benign that you question why it's a cliffhanger. Casey jumped into the pond. The next episode, they're not even shown.
I hate that too.
It is frustrating. The number of unanswered questions we are going into the finale with are extreme.
Yeah, because the problem with that is give me a couple nuggets along the way through the season that satisfy me. But instead, it's like we build up to our season finale episode where I feel like they are not going to be able to answer everything that has remained unanswered in 45 minutes.
No, and they have to leave some things unanswered in order to make for an interesting 4th season, to make people want to come back. So
I hear that, but they also like even drop new nuggets that they could work in season 4.
I know the fact that in episode 9 we're getting random 74 girl dropping quotes. I'm like, I don't need more questions, people.
I don't need more questions.
Janice says also the way Elliot was staring at Susanna, I was sure he was going to walk up to her and say, Mom? Now that would have been good television. I agree.
I agree. Nobody consulted us, Janice. Mandy?
Let's take a quick break and we're going to come right back with our emails.
Nicole writes in an email, subject titled, Casey, hi, Megan and Wendy. With so much going on this season, I started to feel like I missed a lot in previous seasons. So I decided to do a rewatch. I probably still missed a lot, but I just caught something interesting in season 2, episode 3. Casey comes to the newspaper office and asks Kat for an internship. When Kat is hesitant, Casey says, quote, it would be a dream come true to experience print media firsthand, before it's dead. On first watch, I just thought they were being a dramatic teen, but this time it sounded to me like they live in a time without print media. Also, when Kat says, quote, "So you're Evelyn's granddaughter," they say, "Yup," but avoids eye contact and looks nervous. Kat asks if it would be weird for them to go through the Goodwin archives. And when they say something like, "It would be nice to learn about my family in a different way," they also say they don't really know Evelyn. And of course, they wouldn't if Evelyn died before they were born. Later, when Alice comes in, Casey acts nervous and then is very disappointed when Alice doesn't seem interested in a friendship. The theory of Casey being from the future is already incredibly strong, and these interactions seem to point in that direction as well. Thanks for the podcast. It gives me my fix between episodes. Thank you for listening, Nicole. I think we've established Casey is from the future.
Does this go back to my Alice is dead in the future and Casey is trying to forge a relationship with an aunt or their mom or someone they didn't get the chance to know?
I mean, I do remember during season 2, I thought it was interesting Alice's kind of reluctance to Casey. Mm-hmm. But now in season 3, Alice's reluctance to Casey is that she believes Casey might be her child.
Right. Very different motivations there.
Yeah. So I don't know.
The next email comes from Lisa, who says, "I believe Alice is the one that Fern and then later Fern and Kat talk about. Alice's last name is Dewan, which when you pronounce it sounds like the one. I really think it is just that obvious." Is Alice the one?
That's really interesting, actually.
I don't know.
Sue emails. She says, "Hey, ladies, I love listening to your podcast and all of your theories and opinions. I do have a question for you. In episode 8, you mentioned that Claire, Nick's fiance, could be Susanna. Are you thinking that Susanna is from the future and then travels back? If that's the case, she would have to be a Landry because didn't they say that only Landrys could time travel and you can't travel to the future? You can only travel back in time. Thank you for your podcast."
Well, I responded to this because I wanted to clarify. So I'm just going to read my response. I said, "I think for this theory to be true, we're relying on the theory that the clock allows future time travel, which would allow Susanna to come forward in time, perhaps alongside a Landry. I don't know. Also, people can travel with a Landry when the pond allows, like when Elliot went back with Alice to see Colton. This episode that she's referring to in this email was sent before episode 9 dropped. But again, we also see Elliot go back with Jacob to get to Kat. I said, obviously, there are a ton of what ifs in these scenarios. Theories based on theories. This email comes from Christy, who says, "Ladies, I love the Way Home recaps and listener mailbags. The writers have planned out so many important details regarding time, place, and characters. Their attention to detail is phenomenal. The sticker on Alice's guitar and the story behind it being a prime example. Did you ever think about the Landry house itself? The building has provided a home for several generations. As a colonial farmhouse, I would think it would have more than 3 bedrooms. It's a minor detail, but having Kat move in with Elliot simply as a numbers game doesn't seem to hold up. Surely you could put a futon in there somewhere." I don't know anything about colonial farmhouse construction, but would they be bigger? Would a farmhouse be big? Or would it just be the bare minimum amount of space needed to house and sleep the people who live there?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Are families bigger? But yes, I agree. Kat did not need to move to Elliot's. There is another solution they could have come up with there. I mean, Elliot renovates his entire house. You're telling me they couldn't have made the basement livable if that was necessary?
Sure.
Or that they couldn't have thought maybe Jacob could move to Elliot and Kat could continue to live in the home where her daughter lives. You're not wrong, Christy, that it's a wild leap to... Wow, there's a lot of emails.
I know. You guys, every time we open our Gmail account,
as we're recording. It's great. We love it. Genuinely.
We do. Our next email is from Lisa. I love your podcast. Thanks for all of your sharing and insights. I was wondering if you think that the girl talking to Alice about the T.S. Eliot poem was a young Casey. Also wondering if somehow Kat ends up with Lewis and Casey is their daughter, which is kind of far-fetched. But it crossed my mind as I was listening to the podcast. But I also think that Casey is Jacob's child. But who would he marry? And why is their name a Goodwin? And now we know that Cyrus is not responsible for the wonderful, awesome town at Port Haven, but Susanna is. One more episode, and then we will wait to see if Hallmark renews it for a 4th season.
I do not like the idea that Kat marries Lewis because I think Lewis is a bad guy at heart. I think he's play acting. I think he set Jacob up, as mentioned in our last recap. I think he set him up.
Oh, interesting. Did I have that reaction? Did we talk about him being set up?
I talked about the fact that I thought Lewis made such a sharp 180 from his appearance at the book party
That's right.
to his come be my soil whisperer that I was suspicious of his intentions.
That's right. Might be. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Laura says a few thoughts from throughout the season before we hit the finale. In episode 8, I don't think I heard you mention this, when Alice finds Max Goodwin sitting in her house and he comments, "Nice set," about the chess set. And before he talks about his grandmother Evelyn playing with him, Alice mentions that the chess game was a gift from her grandmother's friend Sam for her birthday. Another piece of the puzzle of a chess piece being found in the Lingermore attic, the fact that the piece is a bishop, and then Sam Bishop specifically gives that as a gift to Dell. I knew he was trouble when he walked in. Not really, but since he made the funny face at the 1800 coins in season 2, episode 10 at the Landry dining room table. Also in episode 8, I did not catch that the guy spying on Kat and Thomas from the cliffside in the 1800s was Jasper. I can't be bothered either to remember exactly what year in 1800 it was. I assumed it was a Cyrus crony that then followed them to see that Kat went in the tunnels to see Susanna at Lingermore and simply told on them to Cyrus. I rewatched that scene a bunch. I just can't tell. His demeanor is so different than Jasper, it seems hard to believe it would be the same person, if in fact it is the same actor. Could it be a Coyle ancestor? Who knows? In episode 9, the hokey comment around Elliot's remark to Susanna, this is in reference to Wendy finding Elliot's Susanna meeting to be a little hokey. I chalked that up to Elliot is dorky, and that's just what he would say in that instance. I mean, this is a guy who talks about the avian flu and chicken hen reproduction while cooking with eggs as a fun fact. Said with love. I do love Elliot. I will say with all the Tomcat passion and excitement, I did actually like seeing Elliot take big action for once. He made a big thought out plan and effort to travel to the 1800s to get to Kat, and I enjoyed finally seeing a passionate kiss between Kat and Elliot, given the awkwardness we've seen from them all season. I was sick of the wishy-washy Elliot we get a lot of the time.
Good email. Michelle W. writes, "Wow, I had all the feels in regard to episode 9 of The Way Home. I just listened to your podcast and had to jump in. Once again, Kat fixing, adding the Cyrus chapter, broke something. She doesn't know better. Thomas and Kat scene was weird. I wanted one more kiss. And honestly, besides Alice, Kat doesn't have a life in the present. At this point, I'd stay for the diseases to be with Thomas, and an extra tetanus and penicillin is worth it. I heard an interview with Chris Holden Reed last year on another podcast. He still fences and did modern pentathlon. Oh, he's a modern pentathlon athlete, swim, run, shoot, ride. I wanted a duel between him and Elliot, science versus the real deal. Of course, Elliot would bore him to death talking about science of the sky. Ooh, hot takes. As for kiss count, Kat has had 4 with Brady, the vet Andy, Elliot, and Thomas. Alice has had 3, Nick, Noah, and Max.
Who the heck is Andy?
The vet Andy? I think that was in season 1, and the gal, the high school friend hooked her up, the gal that worked at, or who owns the point.
Deep cut.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your coverage of the show. It makes my week.
Lisa sent a video that we will include in the show notes. The email is titled Horolovar Flying Pendulum Clock, the craziest clock in the world. And when you look at the video, it does appear to be much like the clock, and the piece that was found, it is a weird, it has a pendulum that swings back and forth and wraps around two different poles, and that piece that Elliot found in the bottom of the clock is at the top. So obviously my powers of description are terrible. We'll include the video so you can see for yourselves what this clock may look like when it is fully put together.
Again, I'm so impressed with like the people who know so much about clocks.
I know, and it even looks, did you look at the video? There's little floral details on the front, which look just like the ones on Elliot's clock, which to me, those little floral details look kind of reminiscent of the Augustine ring.
Oh.
Don't know if there's any correlation there.
Francisco writes in, he says, so much to say, but not all about cat, LOL. Francisco is our resident cat hater.
That's right.
Wendy and Megan, I know my subject line said not all about cat, but what would a week be without some cat bashing, LOL, question mark. I think her saying to Susanna, here's my 21st idea, was a typical cat blunder. I did like the fact that she finally came to the realization that this dalliance with Thomas really wasn't going to work out, since she has a life to live, a daughter to still raise, and hey, let's not forget about the Herald. When she was crying, I thought, what are you crying about? Thomas, the fire, all of it? I think we're seeing season 1 cat again. I do agree with the comment on Elliot. Also, quote, my Elliot, what the hell, question mark, you just said my Thomas. I thought Thomas was going to challenge Elliot to a duel for a minute. That's 2 emails now.
Duel references.
They want a duel. I mean, that would make a cool scene for sure. Regarding Alice, I like the scene with Colton answering a lot of the questions. I think that was a good way to do it. Also, I liked seeing that Kat actually was parenting her and showing interest in her child. I don't see much in a trip to 99 to play MASH. It was a silly game. Says you, Francisco. Man, I feel like I grew up on MASH. He asks what, so it can tell us that Alice marries Nick and lives in a mansion? Nick? No. Oh, if they're playing in 99, okay, I see how she could marry Nick.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I can say this, but Susanna was a total badass in this episode and came in like one at the Landry farm. I think Elliot was just in awe of one of his ancestors. Also writes, Jacob is really going through it. I don't think Lewis set him up, but he needs help. Sabotaging the vineyard now doesn't affect Cyrus. I'm glad Del stopped him, but I knew there wouldn't be an explosion. I mean, it's not Yellowstone. Okay, I think Hallmark needs to do a spin-off with young Evelyn traveling the world and exploring mythical objects and places like Indiana Jones. I'm there for it. Signed, Francisco. I have a question for you. We talked earlier in this episode about a spinoff for Thomas. Would you love a spinoff with Evelyn?
I love Evelyn. I love young Evelyn, and am sad to potentially see her left in the past.
Me too. What's the actress's name? Devin
Chichetto.
On her Instagram recently, she shared some pictures, and I commented from our Girls Gone Hallmark. I was like, our Queen Evie, she liked it.
I saw
I was like, she sees us.
I saw that.
I love Evelyn.
Me too. I really, excellent addition to the cast this season.
Yeah.
Paula writes, hi again. Loved the recap. Hopefully this is my last take on Tomcat and Elliot and Susanna. You were right last week. There was never going to be a cat Santa. Hallmark wouldn't do it. Outside of the slick portmanteau, I don't get the appeal. Rewatching Kat's brush off, she was describing Elliot and what she wants in a lover. It took Thomas to make her realize that. What did Thomas do? That said, I wouldn't be surprised if they bring this back up. I hope the 19th century is done. Some other things. The promo for episode 10 said everything's being wrapped up. I doubt it. I can't count the loose ends. I think Jacob being set up by Goodwin is just too obvious. Does anyone think it's odd that Nick rhymes with Rick and Vic? Do we know Nick's father? Plus the mysterious Claire. There's got to be more to that story. Why does young Dell have such a different accent than old Dell? How did she pick up a twang living in Canada for 50 years? It's got nothing to do with the plot. It just bugs me.
I think that's just Andy McDowell.
Yeah, acting choices. Actresses. Assuming Sam Bishop is a bad guy, could he be from Dell's past? Was the horse a setup because he knew about her family? Is Casey still a character in this show?
Good question.
I'm trying to figure out what happens in 99. Kat had good memories, but it seems like cliffhanger material. I think the introduction of the T.S. Eliot groupie means 1974 may not be done. Read that poem. It fits into the theme of The Way Home. Could she be like Gruster? I don't know what that means.
What is Gruster?
Well, Gruster was a character in the Chicken Sisters,
Yeah,
but I don't know what it means to be like Gruster.
me neither. Paula, write in and explain yourself. I want to go back to one of Paula's notes. Is Casey still a character in this show? Agree. There has not been enough Casey in this season overall for me.
No, and particularly given it's such a driving plot point about who they are.
Yeah.
I mean, Alice is in an existential crisis about the fact that she may be a mother to this future time traveler.
Jessica writes, I'm so bummed that these Mailbag episodes are wrapping up. You ladies have done a great job. Hey, Jessica, we want to keep Mailbags going. We hope you're a regular Hallmark movie watcher. Please write in.
Yep, this one's on you, y'all. Keep them going.
I hypothesize that the young woman quoting T.S. Eliot to Alice was Eliot's mom. The scene was clearly meaningful, and why else have a T.S. Eliot quote from some random younger chick? It has been days, and I'm still mourning the Tomcat goodbye. While I understand it from an intellectual standpoint, it's so stinking sad. It's also frustrating because I agree with you that future travel is coming. Plus, Thomas says he has relatives in New York, so he doesn't necessarily need to actually go there to fulfill what Jasper told us. I think the writers did the best they could to try and give a satisfying goodbye. But the reality is, for a lot of viewers, it would never be enough. At least half the viewers, right? Along this thread, I'm Team Francisco.
This is my favorite because I love that these Mailbag episodes are such a part of the canon now that people are all in on other writer inners. This brings me so much joy.
So much joy. Oh my gosh. I am Team Francisco, and I'm super annoyed with Kat. Elliot jumps to 1814, and all of a sudden she's calling him my Elliot and happy with him again, when scenes before she basically told Thomas she wasn't sure if Elliot was enough. She is constantly flip-flopping and getting annoying. I also agree with you. I don't get the scene where they embrace. It was not earned. Was this just showrunners trying to speed things along to say they were getting back together? A lot of the past 2 episodes feel very rushed, like this season could have been 12 episodes and not 10. Can't wait till your final summary episode, Jessica.
I love the idea of this being 12 episodes and not 10.
Me too.
I think we could use more. Team Francisco, you got fans. Karen writes, Kat and Elliot do not look like they have a future. Their relationship is weak and awkward. Kat and Thomas look good together, and she needs to work it out with him. What's a little time difference when you're in love? You know, they're temporally undesirable, but other than that. Lori sends an email titled The Clock and the Raison d'etre from the founding families.
Fancy. What's that mean?
I think it's the reason for existing. Hi, Wendy and Megan. I know that many people have proposed that the clock on the wall is meant to be a time travel device and to the future, but honestly, if a man-made German clock from the 19th century has the same capabilities as a natural phenomenon created thousands of years ago, I will be disappointed. There are stories from all cultures dating back centuries of thin spots in nature where the realm between worlds can be traversed, given the right circumstances. It's only in relatively recent history that the idea of time travel or travel between worlds can occur through man-made devices has been part of various stories. Our listeners are so smart.
I know. I was just like, Lori, do you want to take my spot on this podcast? Because I'm blown away by the thoughtfulness of this response.
Also, the writers themselves have stated future time travel is an integrity issue. As part of the Landry lore, and part of the Landry lore is that you don't tell others their futures. In episode 9, Kat states that no one should know their future. And while that might be a character stating her opinion, it could also be the writer stating something they hold sacrosanct through the mouth of one of their characters. I know others have stated this. The Landrys are focused on the past, the Goodwins on the future, and the Augustines on the present. Hey. The Landrys reflect as the pond is a reflection on the past and learn from what happens. The Goodwins looked to the future and founded a town, started a shipping business, and created a winery. The Augustines, in the words of Eliot, observe and record. He stated at Founders Day that the Augustines contributed by recording the town's stories, and they are still doing that today. So perhaps the clock is about recording information or has provided the Augustines of the past ways to observe. It will be interesting to see. I honestly think there are far fewer time travelers than fans have been postulating. The Landry's ability seems to be tied to the fact that they dwell on the land, that they are stewards of the land. Even their last name hints at that. People just want to see time travelers everywhere when, like with Outlander, it's just a select few.
I'm convinced that writer inner Lori is the showrunner of the show.
It's really thoughtful. And as I'm reading this, I'm thinking about the thoughtfulness of the creation of that show, this show.
Yeah.
Because when you think about the Augustines being the historians, and we have Susanna Augustine and her book, and then we have Eliot Augustine and his journal. And I just think the thoughtfulness of all of that to come together over these seasons. I'm very impressed with Lori's observations and with the fact that those things exist.
Yeah. And I know she says in her email that others have stated all of that. That's the first time it's ever been laid out.
News to me.
Yeah. Lindsay writes in, hello, my mom and I love listening to your podcast. Heyo, we're hitting generations, Megan. Thank you for good listening, guys. We just discovered it a couple weeks ago and wish we had found it sooner. We love all the possible theories. Do you think the younger girl that talks to Alice in 1974 could be Eliot's mom? She said her favorite author is T.S. Eliot. That's got to be a clue. When y'all were talking about the man who looked like Jasper in the 1800s, I found this comparison in one of the Facebook groups. And she sends a screenshot of the photos of the actor playing Jasper. These are from his IMDb because I shared these same photos in our own Facebook group. I will also drop this collage of photos in our show notes for this episode too. So if you guys want to get eyes on it, you can see. In regards to who is Sam, I saw an interview with the actor who said that he wasn't right about what he thought and he didn't even know who he was yet. I heard the season ends on a cliffhanger. I really hope the series gets renewed. I know we'll get some answers in the finale, but I'm sure there will be lots more questions too. I heard it's a real tearjerker, so we better buckle up.
I have a question for you. So many people have written in that T.S. Eliot is a very clear nod to Eliot. Are you a little embarrassed that we didn't get there?
I am. But you know what? It's like when you have an episode, it's easy to Monday morning quarterback, right? When we watch these episodes, we're like taking furious notes. There's so many things coming at us.
And then over the next week, we kind of start processing it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm embarrassed. That was my excuse to be like, guys, there's so much happening here.
One final email from Anita who says, I think Delilah is pregnant in 1974 with someone else's baby and Kat is not Colton's child. Anita, I refuse to accept that energy, that Kat is not Colton's child. Also, the math doesn't math. If Delilah is pregnant in 74, that baby is not Cat.
That baby would be 51 years old.
Correct. You were backwards mathing that from your own birth year.
I was, yes.
Cat is not born for 8 more years. In 1999, Cat is 16 or 17 years old. So she would have been born in like 1983. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we're like 1982. We're like 8 years out from Cat being born. So while there was some evidence that Dell was pregnant in 1974, that baby is not Cat.
Yeah, and again, they dropped these little like hints. To me, it seemed like, oh, Delilah is pregnant, but then it's never talked about again. Nothing ever.
I know there's
happens.
all these little threads that we chase, and then they're nothing.
Yeah.
It's just she was sick.
Yeah, the showrunners are laughing their asses at us right now.
And that is a wrap.
Whew, it was a big one. I anticipate next week's is going to be pretty big as well.
So many questions to answer going into the finale. How much satisfaction are we going to get? I know they're going to leave some questions unanswered. I hope we get a decent volume of questions answered.
Me too.
Some satisfaction.
Please, begging.
We'll be back Friday night, 10:05 p.m. Pacific time, with our recap of the finale of The Way Home. Come back for that. Tell a friend. Share these episodes. Thank you for your emails. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Bye.
All right, friends, before we go, just a quick heads up. You're about to hear some ads. These little gems help us keep the show running and the Hallmark love flowing. So do with that info what you will. Grab a snack, hit the skip button, or maybe, just maybe, listen in and discover your new favorite product. Bye.